Under Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's nationalist populist government, Italy has slashed arrivals by nearly half through aggressive deals with northern African countries. They've detained asylum seekers for up to 2 years while processing claims. They've weakened immigration policies. The populist right is taking over Europe, and there's nothing the EU can do about it. The globalist powers that be in Europe are panicked. They're doing everything they possibly can to try to brunt this massive rise of the right throughout the continent, but it's all for naught. Which is just another way of simply saying that the common sense of the vast majority of European citizens is finally pushing globalist elites out of power. What scholars are noticing is that the whole of European politics has shifted to the right, regardless of whether their patriot parties actually come to formal power. The trajectory, the political pull all throughout Europe is overwhelmingly to the right, and nowhere do we see this more than in their migration policies, particularly the massive surge in deportations that are happening all across the continent.
2025年12月23日、日本政府は有識者会議に対し、2028年度末までに最大123万人の外国人労働者を受け入れるという上限案を示しました。123万人。この数字は山梨県や佐賀県の人口に匹敵する規模です。しかもこれは観光客や短期滞在者ではありません。日本で働き、生活し、制度によっては家族を呼び、長期滞在する可能性を持つ人々です。仮にこの規模の受け入れが続けば、数年単位で日本の人口構成そのものが確実に変わっていきます。つまりこれは、社会の前提そのものを変える規模なのです。もちろんこれはまだ閣議決定された数字ではありません。ただし、この数字は何を基準に、どこを向いて算出されたのか、その説明は当然なされるべきでしょう。目先の人手不足という、経済合理性だけの判断なのか、それとも、将来の人口構成や、国家の将来像まで見据えた長期的なプランなのか。ではここで一度、日本の外に目を向けてみましょう。今回ご紹介するのは、アメリカの政治 YouTuber、ドクター・スティーブ・ターリーが最近公開した動画の翻訳です。彼は、自身のチャンネルで一貫してグローバリズムに対する反発や、各国で起きている国境、経済、文化をめぐる変化を、独自の視点から分析してきました。今回の動画で彼が語るのは、ヨーロッパにおける愛国主義者の台頭と移民の総量管理、舵を切り始めた流れについての解説。その流れが示す国家としての判断基準とは何なのか。その視点を踏まえた上で、日本の123万人が何を意味するのかを皆さんと考えていければと思います。それでは、どうぞ。
It's happening! The populist right is taking over Europe, and there's nothing the EU can do about it. Right now, as we speak, 10 European nations are systematically pushing Muslims out through policies so aggressive, they had the bullies in Brussels openly panicking. And here's what they don't want you to know. This isn't some fringe movement. This is fully mainstream. This is government policy. This is happening at the highest levels, and the numbers will absolutely shock you. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor. I certainly hope you're all having a wonderful week, counting down to Christmas, the most wonderful time of year, and I got something that's going to make it even better for you. A number of articles have come out of late detailing the seismic political shift underway that's reshaping the entire continent of Europe as nationalist populist parties continue to absolutely surge from the political margins to the halls of power. It's an unprecedented wave, and it shows no signs of receding. As of 2025, 7 European Union member states, Croatia, the Czech Republic, Finland, Hungary, Italy, Sweden, and Slovakia now have what the legacy media refers to as, quote, far-right parties in control of their governments, which is just another way of simply saying that the common sense of the vast majority of European citizens is finally pushing globalist elites out of power. Some countries have made some compromises, like Sweden, the Sweden Democrats. They're basically like the MAGA party of Sweden. They support the government without holding formal positions, but they're in the positions of kingmaker. Nothing happens without their say. And in Austria, their Freedom Party came in first in their last election, but they couldn't quite form a government. But they've only increased their support ever since. In Germany, the Alternative for Deutschland is now the #1 most popular party in the entire nation. So naturally, Berlin and Brussels are teaming up to do everything they can to ban them from politics. And in France, Marine Le Pen's National Rally has become the largest party in parliament and is polling in first place. So, of course, a court banned her from running for president. The globalist powers that be in Europe are panicked. They're doing everything they possibly can to try to brunt this massive rise of the right throughout the continent, but it's all for naught. What scholars are noticing is that the whole of European politics has shifted to the right, regardless of whether their patriot parties actually come to formal power. The trajectory, the political pull all throughout Europe is overwhelmingly to the right, and nowhere do we see this more than in their migration policies, particularly the massive surge in deportations that are happening all across the continent. Here are 10 nations that are currently deporting particularly Muslim populations at an unprecedented rate. The nation of France. There are an estimated 6 million Muslims, the largest Muslim population in Western Europe as of 2025 in France. Unfortunately, France has endured a devastating series of Islamist terrorist attacks. Between 2015 and 2021, France experienced 82 Islamist attacks, resulting in 332 deaths, making it the most terrorism-affected country in all of Europe. The Macron government, under pressure from the political right, launched immediate crackdowns after each attack, conducting dozens of raids on mosques and Muslim organizations, initiating mass expulsions, and dissolving Muslim aid groups. The message from the French government was absolutely unambiguous. Secularism, French secularism, is non-negotiable. Republican values supersede religious identity, and France will never, ever give in to Islamic extremism. The nation of Denmark took it even further. They implemented something called ghetto laws. Yes, that's the actual term. If a neighborhood's Muslim population crosses 30%, it immediately becomes a target. The government can demolish buildings, force relocations, and redistribute housing. Over 1,200 Muslim families have been affected by the implementation of ghetto laws. And get this, Denmark's Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, she originally campaigned as a liberal. She's more recently campaigned on a zero refugee policy. Let that hit you. I didn't say limited refugees. She is campaigning on zero refugees. Nada. None. They even tried to send asylum seekers to Rwanda, a country 4,000 miles away, to process their claims. I mean, the message is absolutely crystal clear. Denmark is closed. You're going to have to go somewhere else. Then there's the nation of Belgium. 8% of its population is Muslim, one of the highest percentages in Western Europe. Their approach, they're actually banning a number of Islamic religious practices. So in 2019, Belgium outlawed halal slaughter, arguing it violates animal welfare laws. But for Muslims, of course, this isn't about animal rights. It's about making Islamic religious observance legally impossible, which, of course, it is. That's exactly what they've done. And perhaps most stunningly, the ultra-liberal European Court of Human Rights, they actually upheld the ban. And if Belgium went after ritual practices, Switzerland has gone straight for their architecture. In 2009, 60% of Swiss voters approved a constitutional amendment banning new mosque minarets. Now, to be clear, they're not banning mosques per se, just their characteristic spires. Switzerland has about 400,000 Muslims living there, and they have exactly 4 minarets in the entire nation. The ban ensures there will never be a 5th. The 5th country on our list, Hungary, doesn't hide anything. Prime Minister Viktor Orban built a literal fence on the southern border to keep Muslim refugees out. In 2025, Hungary rejected, get this, 100% of refugee applications from Muslim-majority countries. Not 90, not 95%, 100%. Orban has long touted that he is a defender of the Hungarian civilizational Christian heritage from both the Muslim onslaught from the East as well as the liberal secularism from the West. And as a result, the Muslim population in Hungary today is barely 0.4%. Now, the European Union, of course, has condemned Hungary repeatedly. Orban doesn't care. He doesn't give a rip. And his approval ratings remain one of the highest among all European leaders. And his immigration policies are quickly becoming the policies of the continent as a whole. Austria regulates the money. They ban foreign funding of Islamic organizations and impose strict oversight on mosques. Now, the logic here is that if foreign governments can't fund mosques, then those mosques lose influence. Now, despite these efforts, the Muslim population is growing very rapidly in Austria, rising from 4.2% of the population in 2001 to 8.3% in 2021. So it's almost doubled. This demographic shift is most visible in Vienna, where 41% of children now identify as Muslim. Perhaps that's why the nation of the Netherlands, a country that once symbolized radical liberal tolerance, has banned hijabs and burqas in schools and public buildings. With the rise of Geert Wilders, whose Freedom Party won the November 2023 elections, the government escalated even more restrictions, proposing to extend the burqa ban to all public spaces, implementing a moratorium on asylum applications, deploying military forces to borders, announcing plans to deport all Syrian refugees, halting state funding for refugee accommodation, and even placing signs in asylum centers saying, "Here we are working on your return." But of all European nations, the most dramatic reversal has to be Germany. In 2015, Chancellor Angela Merkel infamously opened Germany's doors to over a million refugees from the Middle East and Northern Africa. Fast forward 10 years later to 2025, Germany has slashed Muslim immigration by 80%. Family reunification programs are frozen. Asylum applications from Muslim-majority countries face indefinite delays. Germany now deports immigrants for failure to integrate, a vague standard that gives authorities enormous discretion. The country's Muslim population is about 5.5 million, about 6.6% total population, but the welcoming spirit of 2015, gone. Greece has traditionally been the usual entry point into the continent for migrants from the Middle East and Northern Africa, but now, increasingly, it's the dead end. Since the right-wing New Democracy Party took power, Greece has accelerated deportations and denied asylum claims at record rates. Refugee camps on Greek islands are overcrowded, under-resourced, and increasingly resemble detention centers. More than 23,000 asylum applications from Muslim refugees have been frozen. Local populations view migrants as economic burdens rather than displaced people seeking refuge. And the Greek government has increasingly made it absolutely clear the days of Greece serving as the entryway into Europe among migrants is now officially over. Finally, the nation of Italy. Under Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's nationalist populist government, Italy has slashed arrivals by nearly half through aggressive deals with northern African countries. They've detained asylum seekers for up to 2 years while processing claims. They've weakened immigration policies, and they've deported imams for comments made at political rallies. Between January of 2023 and July of 2024, Italy expelled 130 people for state security, and they arrested 36 extremists. Despite 1.5 million Muslims living there, Italy still does not officially recognize Islam as a legitimate and legally protected religion. And there's no signs that that's going to change anytime soon. Now, here's what ties all of this together. These countries aren't acting in isolation. Back in October of 2024, just a month before Trump came to office, 17 EU member states signed a joint letter calling for a paradigm shift in deportation practices. They wanted to weaken legal protections for migrants and make deportations easier. And in response, the EU committed 2.5 billion euros to border security and return agreements with third countries. This isn't simply about security. It's about demographics. It's about identity. And it's about a fundamental question these countries are asking. What does it mean to be European? With the rise of what's called civilizational populism, these are the questions that are being asked with far more frequency than ever. As fast as Europe's Muslim population may be growing on the continent, it appears that the populist response is growing even faster. Nationalist movements are surging, and governments are responding with policies designed not to integrate, but to exclude, not to welcome, but to expel. The era of Europe housing the world appears to have come to a decisive end. If these nations have anything to do with it, a new era of reawakened European identity has dawned.
いかがだったでしょうか。ご覧のように今、世界の流れは大きく変わりつつあります。アメリカでは国境管理の強化と移民政策の見直しが進み、第三国からの移民流入は実質禁止となりました。ヨーロッパでもかつて無制限に近かった受け入れ政策に、明確なブレーキがかけられ始めています。それは排外主義の高まりという単純な話ではありません。治安、財政、社会統合、そして文化や国家の持続性、そうした現実的なコストと向き合った結果として、各国が受け入れの規模を問い直している、という流れです。では翻って日本を見たとき、この123万人という数字は、改めてどこを向いた判断なのかが問われてきます。従来の規定路線の値を下方修正しただけの場当たり的なものでなく、公約通り本当にゼロベースで導き出されたものなのか。皆さんはこの数字、どのように受け止めましたか？ぜひコメント欄で共有いただければ幸いです。立ち上がれ、日本人。ご視聴ありがとうございました。